Welcome back to the Failing Adds Up podcast. My name is Antonio Romero, and alongside with me on every single episode, I got
Junior Ibarra. Today I rolled the R's.
Hey, there we go. Let's go. So today we have a unique episode for you, in the sense that Junior, both of us, for the first time ever on the Failing Adds Up podcast, we don't really know a lot about this guest.
Yeah, absolutely. So that makes it even that much more exciting, that much more fun, because we get to know him right here on the spot. So, yeah, most of the guests we've had in the past, we've met them through someone else and have kind of interacted with them a little bit before we got to the podcast. Yeah, this is the first time we get to interview someone that we haven't really interacted with, yet we've heard a lot of great things about. So I'm excited to see how this podcast takes form for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll just get right into it. So actually, we wanted to give a huge shout out to Tony Ibarra. He's actually here in studio. Tony, what's up, man?
Let's go, Tony.
And you know what? Let's switch it up a little bit. We're actually gonna have Tony talk a little bit about how he met our guest here and give him an introduction. Tony, you want to come in here to the podcast real quick? You can come on this side.
Just come on this side.
Yeah, just use this mic right here. Or one of these mics, any of the mics.
There you go.
Well, hey, guys. First of all, I want to give Antonio Romero and Junior Ibarra a big thanks for, their friendship, for the love. Me and Ben, we actually met as kids or young teens at the Iowa State Fair. And so, I mean, we've kind of known each other for quite a long time. But while I'm here, I want to give a quick shout out to all my family and friends in the great state of Arizona, and absolutely the beautiful state of Iowa as well. And Ben Frazier here is here with us today, and AKA Fraz, man. Special move, the Frazzle Dazzle, ain't it, Ben? But here he is. Thank you, guys.
All right, Ben. Welcome to the show, Ben. How you doing, man?
Dazzle. All right. Can't wait to hear more about that.
Yeah, what's that mean? What's the razzle dazzle mean here?
So this is the running joke. I don't remember who it was, but I was given a nickname, and it's Frage, just the beginning of my first part of my nickname. But when people see it spelled, they call it Frash. So they mispronounce it, which is fine. I don't care either way. But the Frazzle Dazzle, I mean, we don't have to go into the Frazzle Dazzle right now. Maybe later in the podcast, a little bit more warmed up, I'll show you a little bit about the Frazzle Dazzle. But you guys might get frazzled.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
Oh, damn.
So we want to make sure we give you the proper introduction here. So, I'll let you do it. You'll probably be able to do it the best, right? You want to give yourself a quick little elevator speech, a little introduction on who you are?
Yeah, so absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I want to start off by just laying a couple ground rules.
Okay.
So since I'm in the finance industry, I have to be very careful of anything that I say that could be taken as a potential recommendation. Nothing that I talk about here is a recommendation or investment of any type of kind. I don't want to mislead anyone. So when we're talking about real estate or we're talking about things like that, we have to do it in generalities, right? At least from my perspective.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But so I wear a few different hats.
Cool.
So I'm still currently actively serving in the Iowa National Guard. I'm a captain in the Iowa National Guard as a medical officer. I invest in real estate, long-term rentals, and then I'm also in finance as well. So I have a planning practice there.
Oh, cool.
And, outside of that, I like to work out, I like to stay active, I like to travel, I like dogs. So
There we go.
Okay.
And we usually like to kind of bring it back to a little bit about, like, your upbringing.
Yeah.
So are you originally from Iowa? Like, did you grow up here? Were you born here? Like, where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. Like Tony said, we met at the Iowa State Fair.
You guys working together, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so the crazy thing is we actually, coming in from out of town, we drove by the Iowa State Fair, and I was like kind of reminiscing because working there, the reason why I worked at the Iowa State Fair is because at high school, I went to East High. I did debate. I actually have a debate tattoo, which we can talk about.
No way.
Later.
Wait, you can put it in the camera there.
It's wild. That was a mistake. But getting involved in debate wasn't. But the problem was when we go to debate tournaments, other high schools like Dowling and Valley, they all had like laptops, right? They all had areas to keep all their notes and their information and, all their data. And at East High, you guys know about East, like we didn't have that, right? So I went to the Iowa State Fair initially to afford enough to buy a netbook, which was like a $350 tiny computer, but it did what I needed to do. And, when I went to debate tournaments, I felt better off having that. So that's why I ended up working at the Iowa State Fair. I met Tony. We worked for this really racist dude named Jack Benoit. and Tony will tell you, This dude used to drive around. He was like old and crotchety. This is where I learned money didn't buy happiness, right? Because he was the wealthiest man I ever met, but he was super unhappy. He would roll around in a scooter and like yell slurs at us and be like, "Get to work, damn it!" Like stuff like that. But yeah, that's where Tony and I started. Humble beginnings.
How old were you at that time?
I had to have been maybe 15 or 16.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So East High School. Tell me a little bit more about that. So it sounds like you were in debate. What else did you participate in? And like, were some of those moments that you look back on, did they add value to like who you've become? And I come from North High School.
Oh
right?
yeah.
And my wife went to East High School. So, go Polar Bears.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know about all
Rivals.
that.
No, just throwing you some shade there,
For
but
sure.
no, have a lot of fun. And so, yeah, I totally know what you mean by like, we didn't have very much, right? Like,
Absolutely.
So competing against those way bigger schools that had a lot more money was a whole nother story. So tell me more about that and your high school experience.
Yeah, so I mean, most people that look at me, they'd assume I did sports in high school, but honestly, I was fat until I joined the military, so sports weren't really an option, right?
Okay.
In high school, when I found debate was like a sanctuary for me to be myself, right? So being like an articulate black man at East made you stand out a little bit, and being in the debate program, like, it helped me find my people, right? We were all weird, we were nerds. I did debate, I did mock trial, pretty much all of those types of like academically based extracurricular activities is what I was into. And, we would, I'm going to catch flack for saying this, but you want to talk about struggle. My first debate partner had a terrible stutter. I love him till this day. We're still friends, but like you go in a debate your first time and your partner has a stutter. You're like, oh, this is going to be an uphill battle. But what debate did for me is it taught me how to have structured arguments. Because, I mean, we live in a world today where people are just constantly screaming at each other and no one's hearing each other, right? And nothing comes from that. The thing I loved about debate is it taught you how to listen empathetically, not just to, devise arguments or whatnot. You listen empathetically to understand other people's point of view. And then, when you lay down your point of view, it's based off of facts, not just emotions, right? And you had to back it up with data. And, we would go around to different schools and whatnot, and we would have all these competitions. We won some awards and whatnot, but we were like a family,
Yeah,
So
that's super cool. So then, like, listening empathetically, like, what goes through your head? What does that mean? Like, what does that mean to you?
yeah. So think about, are you guys married?
Yes.
He is, yeah.
You're married.
I'm
Okay.
married.
So obviously when people are married, they fight.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're fighting, think about how sometimes when your wife is yelling at you, all you're doing is thinking about your reply.
Mm-hmm.
That's the opposite of listening empathetically, right?
Yes.
So the important thing about listening empathetically is that if we disagree on something, my best bet, if I have a chance in hell of changing his mind, is to understand wholeheartedly his point of view. And that means when I'm listening to you, I need to try to put myself in your shoes and understand why is he coming from this point of view. Not just fill my mind with what I'm going to say next, right? It's not about pushing. It's about empathetically trying to understand why he's coming from that point of view, so then we can, eventually get on a level playing field.
Heck yeah, that makes sense.
Because if I immediately just retort whatever you're saying, it's like your defenses are going to go up.
Yeah.
Has that helped you tremendously?
100%. In sales, in relationships, in pretty much just anything, like it helps a lot. You'd be surprised.
That reminds me of something we went over recently, just in our entrepreneurship lives, of like you kind of laid it out in a process, and it reminds me of this process to kind of put out there to our followers. It's feel, felt, found. When you're listening to someone, you like acknowledge their feelings, and then you say, I felt the same way, or how you relate to them,
Yeah.
and then you kind of go through the process of here's what I found to maybe, go about it. So I like the way you kind of like showed that, because it's so true with my wife. I'm like, you really have to hone in on, okay, don't start thinking about what you're going to say back. Just listen and acknowledge, right, everything.
It also comes down to a lot with human emotion, right? So like think about sometimes where you have emotionally packed arguments. The immediate thing you want to say that feels the best is usually the wrong answer, right?
You just want to win. That's all you care
And
about
it's like,
doing is
okay,
winning it.
If you win an argument, what have you lost? Because generally, like the win that you receive, the loss is much greater.
Oh yeah.
And what is good long term generally does not feel good immediately. So sometimes swallowing your pride and taking a step back, hearing the other person out, it's not going to feel good. It's like biting into a hamburger. It's great right away, but long term, right, you're going to get a beer gut and diabetes. So it's like with a conversation, take a step back, hear the person out, and then long term you're going to have better benefits from that.
Yeah. He who controls their emotions probably ends up winning, right?
Exactly. And the funny thing is, in my experience, right, when you do that, you can win without the other person even knowing that you won, right? Which is so powerful. Like the people that, in my opinion, like the mentors that I know, like the people that I respect the most that truly like are in control of things, no one would know it. Right? Like you think, when you think of a boss, right, you think of someone that walks in and like demands a room and like, everybody look at me, yada, yada, yada. No, like the true bosses are quiet and they can control everything in their environment without, you even being aware that they are.
Yeah. Because they've earned their respect from everyone on that team, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's awesome. So how have you taken that skill set, through high school, and then what kind of take us through the timeline? Like what happened after high school? Like what steps did occur after that, whether around that skill set or just in general? Like what happened after high school?
Absolutely. So before I go into that, I just want to start off by saying that I never thought I would be in a position that I'm in today. As a lot of people are when they look at other people and they're like, man, I can't believe he's doing that. There's no way that I could understand that I was that person. Every step of the way, looking at the next thing that I wanted to do, I had imposter syndrome, right? So what happened was I went to...
Define imposter syndrome, because a lot of people don't know what that is.
So imposter syndrome is when you may have an interest in a certain industry, subject, or anything, right? Business, and you see other people doing it, and you might surround yourself by those people, but you feel like you have absolutely no business, in that group, right? And I think for us as people of color, right, we have even more imposter syndrome because it's not only like, hey, I might not know enough about that subject. It's like there's also not a lot of people that look like me doing this, right? Which I think Ibarra Group has done a great job breaking down those barriers in the real estate world, which I'm very proud of you guys for. But that's imposter syndrome. So since I got out of high school, I went to University of Iowa and I had a semester's worth of scholarships. That was it, right? And I was like, well, we're going to have to figure something out. I don't remember exactly who got me in touch first, but I had the idea of like, well, I'll just join the military or the Guard to pay for college. And like I said, before I joined the military, like I was a big dude. I was jiggling. So initially what I did was I went to the ROTC program. ROTC is like a program that you do during college and you become an officer if you get through. And they're like, look, we're going to be honest with you. You're too fat. Like you probably
wow. They just said it straight out like that, huh?
The dude who told me, we're still good friends today, actually. I saw him a couple weeks ago at a military event, but his name's Tony Wolf. Shout out, Tony. Call me fat.
Another Tony, right?
Yeah, another Tony.
Tony.
He has a big old mustache, Tony Wolf does. But anyway, he was like, I think you should enlist in the Guard first, right? And for those of you that are unfamiliar with the military, you have the officer side and you have the enlisted side. So think of the enlisted side as the people that do the work, right? Okay. So they're the people that are executing everything. So if there's a mission, they're the boots on the ground. Okay. The officers are the people that are devising the plans and like planning future, right? So think of officers as like corporate managers, and enlisted are like the staff, right? Okay. But I don't say that meaningful because like the military would be nothing without our enlisted personnel. Mm-hmm. But they were like, hey, you need to enlist first. So I enlisted, and the plan was, so the first 2 years of my college experience, at the end of my freshman year, I was going to get shipped off to Fort Sill for basic training, come back with 1 day between that and the semester. I would start the semester, do my sophomore year, and then I would go and do my advanced individual training, which is where I get my job skill, okay? So I did that. At basic training, I lost 50 pounds. So that was the first step.
Damn, yeah, 50 pounds?
I can show you guys some pictures.
And basic is usually like, what, 6 to 9 months?
No. Basic is only like 11 or 12 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. So my aunt, we have a picture of my aunt bawling. She wasn't bawling because she was like worried for me. She was bawling because she didn't recognize me. Like I called her name and she looked at me and then she turned away because she was like, oh.
What?
Yeah. My face was all like, my cheeks were all like lean and mean and like, yeah, I was ready to go to war. I was like, man, I got this 50 pounds. Nothing's weighing me down anymore. But either way,
it's time for me to go out,
exactly.
out to the club. Huh?
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, that's another podcast.
Yeah.
So I lost 50 pounds. Went back to school. So like now I had secured the bag educationally, right? I was like, okay, I got my tuition assistance. I got my all of that stuff. Like I can afford to do college now. Oh, cool. But now I've entered into this part of my life where like I put on a uniform. So like if there's a war, I'm going to war, right? Like it's just a whole different mindset. for advanced individual training, you had to choose a job as an enlisted person. I chose a cook just because it was like a shorter training, so I could do it in between my sophomore and junior year. So at the end of my sophomore year, I went to Fort Lee, Virginia, became a cook, came back, and then finished that would have been my sophomore year at that time, I think. No, it would have been my junior year, finished my junior year.
So it sounds like the military wasn't ever like going to be like a full-time thing for you.
That wasn't the plan.
Yeah.
That wasn't the plan. But when I came back during my junior year, we approached the ROTC peeps, and they're like, Tony Wolf himself, he was like, dude, I'm so proud of you. I can't believe you lost all that weight. Absolutely, you can join ROTC. So now that I was able to join ROTC, that meant when I graduated, I would be an officer in the military. So I'd go in as a lieutenant instead of being like a private or a specialist.
Okay.
So, during college, I worked at a bar as a bouncer, make some extra money and whatnot, simultaneously doing all the ROTC stuff. But that meant like I was up at 5 a.m, doing PT with them and all that stuff. In May of 2016, I graduated and simultaneously commissioned as an officer in the military.
Wow.
Because one of the requirements of being an officer is you have to have a degree. So simultaneously at graduation, we commissioned. It was on Friday the 13th of 2016, which when I saw that date, I was like, I'm definitely getting capped when I go overseas. There's no way I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Thankfully, that's not what happened. But I got a political science degree, and I don't know if you guys know anything about political science. It makes no money unless you become a politician or a lawyer. So honestly, I didn't really have any plans, right? So I was thankful for the military because like there are things to keep you busy in the military if you don't have anything going on the civilian side. But what happened was after graduation and commissioning, we went back to our units that we got assigned, and actually it was the unit we were at during ROTC. And he was reading off our units. And we had a buddy named Goodell and a buddy named Whetstone. He read theirs first. He was like, Goodell, you're going here. Whetstone, you're going here. And he got to mine. He was like, oh, well, you're going over water. And I was like, well, what does that mean? It was like, I can swim, but what do you mean by going over water? And it was one of those old military terms. He's like, you're going overseas. The unit that I got assigned to had been slotted to go overseas like within a year and a half. So I graduated, and they're like, congrats, but get ready because so.
And do you know out of your class like how many people went over water?
That's a crazy thing. I was the only one that year, and you understand like people were like excited to go. They wanted to go, especially in the National Guard, right? Like people are fighting to deploy. They want to go do their job. I was the only one, right? And I was a medical officer.
How do they choose?
So, in the way it works in the National Guard, you have different units that have different specialties. So you have aviation units, you have medical units, you have infantry units, et cetera. Whatever the mission dictates, they'll source from that unit, right? So at that time, they happen to need an aviation support unit, aviation support battalion. I happen to be a medical officer inside of that battalion, or I was going to be. I hadn't even gone to I hadn't even got to the unit yet. Yeah. And it was time to go. So there was definitely some mixed emotions.
How was that? Like, how did that impact your family? Because they knew it, they knew when you got into it, you signed up for it, right? But now that it's becoming a reality that you have to do that.
Yeah, so I'll be honest, so my mom's a military brat. Her dad retired as a colonel. So I think she took it better. But I would imagine there were some tears and conversations that happened that I were not aware of, right? I'd imagine my dad took it a lot harder than my mom did, and he just didn't show me that part of himself because he wanted to be strong for me. But I imagine he was scared as hell, right? And honestly, at that time, I was lean, mean, I acted like I wasn't scared, but part of me was scared too, right? I don't know what to expect. But yeah, so we deployed in 2017. We went to Kuwait and Iraq. And honestly, it was the most life-changing experience that I've ever had. And, I want to say this, I'm not a hero. I'm not someone that went over there and, killed a bunch of enemy and took bullets and whatnot. There were plenty of people that did that before me and made it safer for me when I went over. So to shout out to all those veterans that went before, my experience was different because of very different reasons. So I met my first mentor, my first business and real estate mentor overseas, right? And this is wild because this put my life on a trajectory I never saw coming. Do you want me to get into that?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, before we get into the business side of things, can you kind of close that gap of being there and how maybe that life-changing experience and then and how that changed your life. Like, I'm sure you saw some things or were experiencing things, or like, or I don't know how deep you can actually go to that, some of that stuff. But
yeah, and also like particularly like how did that shape your mindset? Because it sounds like you had that mindset shift during that time.
I really should get into the mindset. So the thing about the military, first and foremost, I was never made for the military. I was not. I'm still to this day, I'm not made for the military, right? Every training I went to, I was always this close from failing out, specifically in the running. Till this day, I'm a bad runner, right? You know, in the movies like Major Payne and all that, you see the fat kid in the back of the run. That's me, and it still is, till this day, right? So me making it through basic training, AIT, like that was what it did for my confidence. Is it told me that first and foremost, the only limits that you have in regards to yourself are imaginary, and they're made up by you. Right? Like there were times where like I was carrying gear, running in the forest during trainings and whatnot. I was like, how the hell am I going to make it through? But I made it through.
Is there certain things or certain like exercises that they in the military they do for your mindset?
Yeah. So there's a lot of mental games in basic training, right? So first and foremost, I don't think they do this anymore because the generation's getting soft, but that's neither here nor there. There's something called the shark attack, right?
Okay.
So when you get to basic training, usually it's like late as hell. So like you get there, it's late at night, you haven't eaten or whatnot. So they give you this like box lunch that's meant for a 5-year-old, and they say, hey, sit here and eat this, right? And you're just like sitting there. They don't tell you what's going on. Like sit here and eat this, right? And then they come on the bus and they just start screaming at you like, get your shit off the bus, right? And we all have like all this gear and whatnot. And
you're still in like civilian uniform and all that, right? Like you still got your whatever you brought with you.
Exactly.
Okay.
And they're about to strip the civilian off of you, right? So they're yelling at you, you know, like yada yada. They're taking away like all dignity and all like being an adult. But so you're eating your lunch, they come on the bus, they yell at you, tell you to get off, and then like from that point on, they have you like sitting in this big room, and you're sitting there like toddlers, right? You're sitting there like you're in kindergarten, you're crisscross applesauce, and they're like talking to you, and you're like half awake, barely hear what they're saying. And then they're like, all right, go to bed. The next day is when they issue you all your gear, right? And they give you these 2 duffel bags, and they issue you way more stuff that then should fit in those 2 duffel bags, but you got to fit it in there, right? And that's something in the military you get good at, but as a civilian, you don't know how to put all that stuff in there. And then once you do, you got to lift it up. You're holding it above your head. And then they're yelling at you while you're doing that, and this becomes a shark attack, which is essentially just like a beratement. I don't even think that's a word, but like they're just berating you with like insults and yelling at you while you're holding your gear, and you're sweating, and they're telling you like don't move. And then anytime that you reply to them, you have to reply very aggressively, like, you know, yes, drill sergeant, you know, like they're trying to create that urgency inside of you, and that lasts probably for like an hour or two
of constant yes, drill sergeant.
Exactly.
Back and forth. Okay.
So then the next day, you know, the weird thing is you would think that they keep you up late that night, but they do the opposite. They put you to bed at like 5 p.m. while it's still light out. And what's the vulgarity rules here?
Hey, man, you just be you.
Yeah.
To fuck with you. Right? So when's the last time that you've willingly, now as an adult, it's different because if you're tired at 5 p.m. y'all laying, but like when you're in your early 20s, when's the last time that you went to sleep at 5 p.m. and it's still light out and you don't have a phone to scroll because they take your phones, right?
Oh my God.
So they put you to bed early as hell and you're just like, what the fuck just happened? I'm not even tired. Yeah, right? And then the next day they have these fluorescent lights just like that, but even brighter. And at around like 4:30, 4:50, whatever, they just click them on and they just start screaming like, get up, get the hell up, right? And the showers, like you're in a line, you know, you're waddling in like butt naked next to these guys or whatnot. You have never met, right? And you'll be friends in the future, but it's so weird now. And then you just start training nonstop. You know, you start working out and whatnot, and you know, running and push-ups, and anytime you fuck up, you're doing push-ups, right? You know, I joke with people because they're like, man, your chests are so big. Like, these were man boobs before I joined the military. Like, straight up. Like, I used to get burger flipped in high school and in middle school. And then the thing is, I was such a loudmouth in basic, I did so many push-ups. That's how I changed them to pecs, right? Yeah. And I actually got...
That's the key right there.
I know, right? It's joined basic training.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up getting put on a no talking profile because, like, even till this day, like, I'm a class clown. I like to joke around, right? So, like, I would do some things that were probably not appropriate in basic training. So, like, some of the white drill sergeants, when they'd mess with me and, like, yell at me, I'd be like, oh, yes, sir. I'm sorry. And they make them really uncomfortable. And then they have to go get the black drill sergeants to deal with me because they're like, I can't deal with them anymore. You know, I was a little bit of a jackass. So they put me on a no-talking profile for, like, a week where I, like, could not talk, right? And there are a lot of things that they do to fuck with you. So like, for instance, you're supposed to have your wall locker, which all of your stuff is in, locked every night, right? And there's this one time where someone had left their wall locker open. Okay, and this was at a point in time where like everyone was really down, they're missing their families, like everything was like they're all upset. The drill sergeant woke everyone up in the middle of the night, and they were like, "Get all of your shit and meet me on the drill floor." Right, and the drill floor is like the outside area where we'd get drilled. And when he said all your stuff, he meant our wall lockers, everything inside of them, our beds, take them apart, take them outside, put them back up together outside, everything, right? And this was probably like 1 or 2 in the morning, right? So they were fucking with us. So we did all that, pitch black outside, and we get out there, and he throws all of our stuff in the middle. So everything that's supposed to be in the wall locker, all of our personal stuff, they throw all of it in the middle. And he's all like, organize your shit, take apart your beds, move all of your shit back in the bay, take your asses to sleep, right? So like just the mind games, right? Now what they did though, looking back, now that I'm in areas of leadership, I understand since we were at such a low point, they were creating a common enemy, right? So since we were at such a low point, they wanted to have something that we could rally against. So at that point, it's like, all right, we all hate the drill sergeant, so now we're friends, right? Now we're going to start working together. And you'd be surprised, the mentality shift from that point, we all started excelling at basic training, right? Because we were at the lowest of the low. When it comes to making soldiers, right, my understanding from all that is like you have to break people down and then build them back up, right? It's like clay.
Or even like the reason you work out, right? Like you're breaking down your muscle and it's
to build it up.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was something. Basic training was, but the weird thing is like there's definitely some Stockholm syndrome there because you love the drill sergeants by the end of it. And when I say you love them, like you want to impress them more than your own parents because like they've raised you as a soldier. Even though it's only 11 weeks, they've taught you everything you know about how to stay alive, how to protect yourself, things that your parents like never taught you in that capacity. So you look up to them and like at the end, it's like, holy crap, like I love these guys. Shout out Joe Sergeant Williams, Black Panther.
You said Black Panther there, huh?
That was his, his nickname was the Black Panther.
Oh, okay.
He had some crazy stories. Like you could see the 1,000-yard stare one night. He was telling us one time that his first firefight, you would think like in the movies, they have all their vest on and whatnot, but like his first firefight, and I think it was either Iraq or Afghanistan, he was laying in a tent in his underwear playing like the PS, what was that, the PS2 or the handheld one? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I can't remember what version it was, yeah.
And they started capping. All he had time was to put his boots on. So he was in his first firefight in his underwear and boots, just laying hate on the enemy. Like that was his first. So like hearing that, it was nuts, right?
Damn.
Yeah.
And they prepare you for all of that, huh?
Yeah. Well, the thing about the basic training is what they want to prepare you for is if someone tells you to do something, you have to act on it immediately. There's no questioning things, right? And the reason why is like if we're overseas and I tell you like, hey, step to your right or step to your left, there's a reason why I'm telling you. Or if I say, hey, stop moving, you could be about to step on a mine, right? So like in basic training, they're trying to train your brain to understand that like orders are orders, right? And I know it can sound a little crazy like as a civilian, but you have to understand like that's what saves lives overseas. So that's what we were learning.
So how long were you over there, overseas?
Yeah, so I think I did a total of 11 months between Kuwait and Iraq. What happened when I went over there, my original job was to run a troop medical clinic in Kuwait. But the guy, my version, 2 levels above me, got replaced with something he was supposed to do above him. So I had to do his job and my job.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even understand my job at the time. So like, so what happened was they pulled me aside. They're like, hey, you're going to be doing something different that you didn't know about. So they walked me into this small room. And the crazy thing about in the military, the higher you go, so like it goes platoon, company, battalion, brigade. The higher you go, the nicer the buildings get and like the more secure they are. So we went to the brigade headquarters and they were like, hey, you're going to be doing this job. You're going to be doing your medical officer job at this level. And here's your partner. And so my partner was this pissed off master sergeant who looked like he hadn't slept in like 20 days and just cussed like a sailor. And I looked at him and I'm like, oh, we're gonna make this work, right? He actually looked like an older Matt Damon, which is kind of funny, but we figured it out. But our job was there were medical locations all throughout Iraq and throughout Kuwait. So that meant that I had to like fly up to Iraq and like pop around to these different spots and make sure like everything was copacetic. And that's what I was doing.
What's one of the craziest stories you have from the military?
Man, I wish you guys would have sent me these questions ahead of time. Well, okay, so I'm not proud of this one, but I believe in laughing at yourself. So I am terrible with directions, right? Like the absolute worst with directions. So we were in Kuwait trying to get to this place, and I was like, oh, I know the way, like you just follow me or whatnot. And we're in the sand, right? So sometimes with sandstorms, you can't see the road, like the sand is just covering it. And my platoon sergeant was like, sir, I think we are off of the trail. Like, and I'm like, oh no, we're good. And we start seeing like some black stuff in the sand, and they have fins. And he's like, sir, you need to stop the car immediately. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, we are in an impact zone, right? So the fins were actually like, they were unexploded ordnance because it was an impact zone. So we had driven him into the wrong spot. So he was like, all right, you need to drive back the exact same way you came in reverse, if you can remember how to do it, or we might get blown up. So yeah, because in Kuwait, they have areas where you like, it's like a shooting range, but for very large guns, right? So like we had to go back. There was that,
and you were able to do it all in reverse.
I'm here, right?
I guess, but
I got all my fingers and toes.
Oh my goodness.
You did it fully in reverse, the whole thing.
Yeah,
Dude,
that's crazy.
It was wild.
How long did that take? Do you remember?
I don't remember. The thing about deployment, you ask any veteran, they'll tell you this: time moves differently over there. In the box in the desert, time moves very differently. It's weird. It's like the first couple of months feels like years, and then the last couple of months feels like minutes. So I couldn't, if you ask me how long something happened, like how long it took, like it's all different. It's relative over there. But yeah, the cool thing about deployment is that when you're on base over there, it's like there's a culture that's built up of people that have just been deployed over there and like over and over and over again. And they have like all these different like, I don't know, it's just like they're different ways of saying things. Like they're different, right? Like everyone's about fitness over there. I started CrossFit over there because I wandered into the wrong gym, and they were like, nah, you're not going to be doing bench presses today. Come in here. You're going to do a WOD. I didn't even know what a WOD was, right? We would run 5Ks and then go to the gym. Like everyone is just like getting massive over there, and just like, yeah, it's crazy. But I also got to visit Saddam's palaces because we have a base there now.
Oh wow!
And I won't get too much into that, but I got to take a tour of his where they used to keep political prisoners, like his dungeons. That was scary. Like you could tell the energy was off. Like a lot of people had died there. A lot of people had been tortured there. But yeah, no, I think being overseas was a life-changing experience. Some of the people that I met over there, like, your lifelong friends, and it really is just something unlike anything. Have you guys ever been to summer camp as kids?
I actually haven't.
I haven't either.
Yeah, well, it's for those of you the listeners that have been to summer camp, think of it as like an elongated, dangerous summer camp.
Yeah.
It's like you get super close to these people, and they're like your friends, your family, and you learn new skills and stuff.
Yeah.
What's one of them?
That's like a whole nother level. Like you literally just talked about almost getting blown up driving backwards. So.
Like
summer camp.
That's what he.
But no, so tell me how that transition is in going through that kind of life experiencing, tour over there to like coming back to civilian life. Do you come right back into civilian life, or do you phase into it, or how does that work?
There is something called I want to mess the word up, but you have in processing and out processing. So you in process through Fort Hood and you out process through Fort Hood. I don't know if you guys heard about Fort Hood, but it's like not a great place, right?
Where's it at?
It's in Texas, Killeen, Texas. People don't go there to vacation, right?
Yeah.
But the base is super boring. It's kind of austere, and you do all your medical paperwork, your finance paperwork, just to kind of process you out. So my plan actually was I met a dude over there named Gatlin, right? And why is he named Gatlin till this day? We have no idea, right? Because his parents were a little nuts, but he was adopted, right? And he had shared with me, he's like, yeah, I went to a Bible college. I haven't really had any experience with life. Like, I just want to like go explore. I want to go do stuff, right? And I had been to Europe before deployment, and I told him, I was like, dude, we should go to Europe. Like, let's go backpack Europe. Why not? So we actually bought tickets to leave America like 3 days after we had gotten there, after out processing, right? But out processing is only supposed to take like 4 days max, and you get to be with your families. For whatever reason, our out processing took 2 weeks, and people were pissed. Like, they were so upset. I don't even remember the reason why they held us up, but we had to cancel our tickets and buy new ones. The thing about entering back into civilian life, I think any veteran will tell you that it's lonely, right? You can be surrounded by family and friends, but if you don't have other veterans there that, know what you went through, or, kind of
had the same experiences.
Exactly. And the fact that, like, you're surrounded by people there all the time, like you're in bunks with people, and like you're surrounded by people, and then you get back and it's just like, yeah. So, but yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, how did that experience, how was that?
Yeah. So, like, I think, I think other veterans will tell you how they feel, but for me, I feel like veterans take on a civilian identity when they come back. And these identities can look like a lot of things, right? Some veterans, they continue to identify with how they were in the military. So, like, they're very, like, rough and gruff and, like, hardcore. Like, I want to shoot every weekend, have a big beard. Nothing wrong with that, right? I have plenty of friends like that. Other veterans go the opposite. They're like, man, I hate this country. Like, they're fighting back, whatever, like either during Vietnam. Everyone has their, like, civilian identity. My civilian identity was business, right? And we'll get into that. But when I came back, like, I'll be honest, like, I was on a war path to build wealth. And it was really because, like, what I had learned over there from my mentors, like, helped me realize that just thousands and thousands and thousands of people here in America and just in the world are playing in a game that they don't even understand the rules to, right? And with the free time I had overseas, and the reading that I did and the research I did helped me realize, like, these are the rules of the game. Everyone has to play. You don't have a choice. You have to play, but you get to decide how you play for the most part. And when I came back, I was like, I'm going to build this empire by any means necessary. That was my identity, right? You think about in the movies that the veteran that comes back and starts a business is super successful. That's who I identified with, whether I was there or not. That's who I wanted to be. And I was all like, and on social media, people will tell you, Tony will tell you, like, I used to flex all the time on social media. It's like, people are going to see who I am now, like who I've become since I've become, come back home. And obviously there's a lot of insecurities involved with that too. But, like, coming back from overseas, like, I just wanted to show people I can make something of myself. Like, I'm not going to be someone that gets addicted to drugs after going overseas, or like getting, heavy into alcohol. It's like, I'm going to build this thing. So,
damn. So let's get into that. Like,
okay.
What, like, in regards to business and whatnot, like, in taking that identity, like, how did you start the process? Sounds like you started up with reading. So 100%. Like, what are some of those books that really, like, enlightened you, or that mentor, and then what was your path towards going down this business empire path?
So first and foremost, shout out Mr. Robert Kiyosaki, the OG veteran businessman, right? OG veteran real estate guy. If you are a military person currently in the military or just got out, pick up a Kiyosaki book. It'll do you well. Okay. So this is what happened with my mentor. We were at Chow once. Her name is, I'm not going to use her real name because her and her husband are very private. They're building a beautiful life with their kids. Not going to use her real name.
And Chow is like eating lunch, right?
Yeah, you were eating dinner, right? So we'll call her Captain C. So me and Captain C were eating dinner, talking. And we always got along, so we were talking well and enjoying ourselves. She opened up her phone, and she was on her USAA app. USAA is a bank a lot of military people like to use, right? And I just saw all of these accounts, right? And I was like, what the hell? Like, you have 7 accounts and all of them have like tens of thousands of dollars in it. I'm like, I know how much a captain gets paid. You're only 2 ranks above me. Like, what is going on here? She was a PA on the civilian side. But, I mean, even PAs, like, they're making $90,000 a year. They didn't have that type of money. And she was all like, oh, like, she had a really soulful way of talking, even though she was white. She's like, I'm an investor, baby. Like, I invest. And I was like, what do you mean by that? She's all like, I invest. Like, me and my hubby back home, we invest in real estate. Like, we're in business, right? And again, without getting too deep into those things, because I'm not making any official recommendations, right? I picked up every Robert Kiyosaki book that I could. I was listening to Bigger Pockets. I was, learning everything about the market and like real estate and all that stuff. And I was in a position where I was earning tax-free income, because in a combat zone, you earn tax-free income, didn't have a way to spend the money. And I had some free time at night where I could, listen to this stuff. So like, people that have caught the real estate investing bug, they know like they're fired up and ready to go. But when you're in a position where you're going to come back with a decent little nest egg from being overseas that you can actually put to use, then, you can be a little bit dangerous. So.
That's one of my favorite books. That's what threw me down the real estate path too.
Yep.
So Rich Dad Poor Dad was obviously one of the most renowned books out there. That's changed a lot of lives.
Cash Flow Quadrant.
Cash Flow Quadrant. Yeah, that's a good one. All of them. So you had the nest egg. Like, what was your first investment? Was it officially? Did you buy a house or like how? Like I know you said we have to be careful on some of this stuff, but like. Can you like at least hit on some of the
just trying to hear about your journey?
Your journey,
my journey, right? Yeah. So, here I'll talk in this way. So, the corporation that I was associated with upon returning home initially purchased a single family home for $50K, in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, right? And that was like the most I could afford, with the down payment and everything, a little bit of renovation. Like that was the first thing that I did, and quite honestly, like I was terrified because I didn't have like parents that had extra money to be in this with me or anything. Like I was just coming back with what I had learned from books, and like my mentor, like she never loaned me any money or anything, which I'm very thankful for. But she was there for support. But like I had to step through that on my own. Like I had to step through that, make that decision and make that choice on my own. And I did it, and it was terrifying. Yeah. Right. But that was my initial investment. So my corporation that I'm associated with.
There we
initial
go.
Investment. So.
Love it. And so that's how you started. Like, do you want to walk through how you grew, or do you want to talk about kind of where you're at and like what are you doing now with your wealth journey or your business journey? Like which route do you want to take us down?
Yeah. So, I mean, we can go with growth, right? In general, I stuck the single family home route for, I was buying 2 or 3 properties a year for a couple of years there. And really just, I would say that I definitely got blessed with where interest rates were at the time, right? Because during that time, if I'm sure you guys remember back to like 2019, 2020 or so, like you could get a little crazy and maybe not know exactly what you're doing and still do well in real estate. It's different now, right? It's different now. But yeah, so that's what I was doing back in the day. And I just continued to scale. I hadn't gotten into commercial or anything yet. It's still single family homes and all of that.
I want to put some perspective to this.
Yeah.
When did you buy that first one? Or when did the corporation buy the first one?
Yeah, the corporation bought it in 2019, I think it was.
2019.
Or 2020.
And what are you up to now?
So you guys said 7 on the invite, but I'm actually up to 6. Yeah, I sold one.
But in the matter of a few years.
Yeah. On my own. Well, I don't want to say on my own. I had plenty of mentors and everything too. No one's self-made. Like no one's on their own. But yeah, just with me. So, and there's been a lot of situations, and I want to get into this later, right? Situations where it's like you're not completely sure what to do, but you just have to keep moving forward. There's been a lot of situations like that, especially with real estate. Like renovating. First of all, I am not a handyman. I have no business touching any tools more complex than a hammer, right? If it's more complex than a hammer, something's getting broken. I'm hiring someone to fix it more expensive than it would have been in the first place. But there have been times when I've tried to do things on the properties on my own that I had no business doing. And I would be like, I'd have my phone with YouTube right here, and I'd be holding the thing right here, and I'd be like sweating and wiping sweat on my brow, just like messing stuff up. So there's a lot of situations like that during renovations and whatnot. But a lot of that taught me how to delegate. Right? Because as we scale in any type of business, if you do not learn how to comfortably delegate tasks, then you'll never be able to scale, right? I like to think of the example of business owners in America, right? Think of like the first generation Chinese restaurant owners that like that's their baby. They're there freaking 14 hours a day, which I respect, right? But that's very difficult to scale, right? If you never place trust in the hands of someone else to run the parts of the business that other people can do, right? They can get paid $15 an hour to do or whatever, to you go do the things that only you can do, right? As a CEO or as an investor, your business will never scale, right? So like messing stuff up on my own taught me, hey, you don't got to be the smartest person in the room. You just got to hire the smartest people in the room, right? You just got to bring on people that know what they're doing. And that's how I was able to grow.
So letting go of control a little bit on certain things.
You have to. And that just becomes that comes from being a manager of people. If you can learn to manage people, you don't have to have a single skill outside of that in your entire life. Because guess what? People can do anything. And if you know how to manage them, they can build you anything. If you solicit the help of the right people and you understand how to manage them, care for them, make them feel, cared for, right? You take care of them, they'll build you whatever the hell you want.
Nice. So then, so what learning lessons for those followers that are out there would you say in regards to business or investing, or just in general as they're getting started? Like, what would you tell them to do? Like, it sounds like one of them's it sounds like you had some mentors. Yeah. It sounds like, learning how to manage people and delegate. Like, what other failures that you went through that would help others as they kind of figure out their own journey?
Yeah. So first and foremost, when it comes to mentorship, understand that what got you here will probably not get you there. So that means sometimes you have to outsource mentorship. Your parents cannot teach you everything. And if you want to know something about a very niche subject, right, you're going to have to go seek out that mentorship. These are some red flags as a mentor, right? If a mentee comes up to me asking, and they're not trying to give anything or add any value, you have to understand that the right mentor is going to be super busy generally, right? So you want to come prepared to add value in that mentor's life in exchange for what they're going to teach you. So find someone who's in a position that you would trade spots with. If you wouldn't trade spots with your mentor, why are you asking them for advice, right? So find someone that you would trade spots with, right, if given an opportunity, and find a way to provide value. What I recommend for people that are just getting started out, because if you're like me, right, you didn't have a lot of money, find a way that you can add value for free. What's something that you're naturally gifted at that you can do that costs you very little, right? And then soak up as much information as you can, right? Like just soak it up. Stay close to them, be helpful, but just soak it up. And, like I said, I've asked, when I was younger, I asked my mentor, I think at one point I asked her for a loan for a project, and I also asked her for hey, maybe I could just throw money in with your project and make money. And she never said yes. And I'm so thankful that she didn't. Because there's no amount of money that your mentor can give you that would be more valuable than the knowledge that they can give you. Because when you take their knowledge, you make their hindsight your foresight. And I think everyone in this room can think of a time where if you look back on it, the answer is obvious, right? Mm-hmm. You're talking to your mentors. They're telling you, hey, I went through this. This is what I did. That's now your foresight. It's essentially being able to tell the future.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And it's so true. There's so many people and for the followers out there that are seeking those mentors, because that's a question that, a lot of young people or people that want to go from A to B ask is how do I find these mentors? Well, if you're just gimme, that mentor is literally going to tell you, I don't have time for this.
Literally don't, yeah.
Right? And it's so what is that mutually beneficial relationship? And you're right, time is one of the best things you can offer to do X, Y, or Z in exchange for knowledge, right? So I love how powerful that statement is, and you're going to benefit a lot from the knowledge and experience of their failures.
Exactly.
So that you don't have to go through some of those same hurdles.
And then quickly on the mentorship thing. So, it's also important to understand that a lot of these old real estate cats, right? The funny thing about them that I've noticed, their kids generally don't give a damn what they have going on. They're not trying to take over the portfolio. They're not trying to build wealth like their parents are. Generally, not all of them, but a lot of them are they've enjoyed wealth. They're just kind of soft, right? So if a young cat comes up to one of these old dudes and they show interest in what they've done, people love talking about themselves. So you just get an old real estate cat talking about his journey or her journey, they'll give you all this free chicken for nothing, right? So yeah, they understand that they're willing and waiting to talk about this stuff. But also, I think people have a habit of getting into what I call analysis paralysis. It's important to educate yourself. You got to educate yourself. But people will begin to educate themselves to a fault to the point where they've accumulated enough information to do what they need to do, right? But the thing about it is, it feels more comfortable to continue to seek more information just to make yourself feel busy, when in reality, you got to take the first step, right? I can't tell you how many people that I've talked to over the last 3 or 4 years. The market's weird right now. It's like, you've been saying that the last 4 years. When is the market not going to be weird? If you ask a cat today, he's going to say the same thing. You know what I mean? So it's like taking action is super important, because it's never going to be the right time for anything. People ask, hey, do you guys have kids?
Yes.
Yeah, right. I'm sure people have asked you since you have kids, hey, when's the right time to have kids?
Yeah, there is the right time.
Never ready.
When's the right time to go back to school? There's no right time.
Now.
Right? If you know that no day is ever promised, the right time to do anything is right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cool thing with real estate, if you would agree with this, is like time is on your side. Like the longer you hold on to that piece of real estate.
Yeah. Why don't you talk a little bit about why that is, since I'm not in the capacity to do so?
Oh, here, yeah. I like how you threw that back at me. So one of my favorite sayings, and you know, Antonio and I are in the real estate world, so since we're talking on that topic, and we can talk about anything regarding real estate.
Spill it, man.
Freedom.
As I like to say, don't wait to buy real estate and wait. And again, I've learned this from my mentors, and he's so right in regards to like seeking mentors that have gone through a journey. They're so willing to share, because I have, you know, encountered mentors who their kids just went a different path, right? Like, and so just they're excited to talk about their journey, all the life lessons that they learned and the failures that they've gone through to help someone young and hungry and thriving, energetic, to go down this exciting new path of their life, right? So I've learned a lot from my mentors, and that's one of the things I love to kind of share with the people in my ecosystem, in my world, right? And so real estate is just a powerful thing. I mean, just look at, there's this chart, and I maybe we can find it and post it. No promises, but it shows the value of property from each decade. So say 1970 to 1980, 1980 to 1990, 1990 to 2000, 2000 to 2010, 2010 to 2020. Even if you look at 2000 to 2010, which what happened during 2008, 2009?
Real estate market crushed.
Right? Even if you factor that in, what do you think happened in the value of a property from 2000 to 2010?
Went up, right?
Went up. It still went up, right? So from every decade, what do you think real estate did?
Went up.
Went up. So if you just look at history, as long as you hold that piece of property for at least 10 years, you're going to come out winning, right? And so I'm very, very blessed that I did start 10 years ago. And even as a shitty as of investor I was 10 years ago, you know, buying my very, very first property, which is this house on Maury Street that I rented to my brother.
Oh. Which you still own, right? You still own that one?
And Abe behind the scenes probably remembers the beer pong parties at that little 2-bed, 1-bath, slab-on grade house that we bought for $30,000 and was renting for $450 a month, you know, and my payment was like $350, so I was making $100. And you're like, I would never recommend that to anyone again necessarily, because the $100 cash flow gets eaten up by just your tenants.
Dangerous.
Yeah, your tenants leaving, right? Like you're gonna spend $2-3 grand just painting carpet, right? So, yet now I luckily I never touched any of the money. I just kept, you know, letting the money go back into the property. Fast forward now, that same exact house is still there. It's still brown and ugly kind of thing. No, we've done good things to it. Yeah.
It looks a little different.
It looks a little different. Maybe the color of this table still though. Yet, man, now the rent is $975.
Who would have thought, right?
And my monthly payment has not gone up. Right. So, again, for all of you that are listening to this, and he took us down a little bit of the path of real estate, I just dove a little bit deeper, right, and we can talk about real estate at an even deeper level some other time. So hopefully that took us down to some cool roads to talk on. So now let's reel it back in. So in regards to business, like what are you doing in the business world that has you excited?
So, again, I have to be very careful how I talk about this.
Okay.
I'll just lay out the structure of
Okay.
what my business, what I got into, and how it has to work.
Yeah.
Okay, so the business that I got into, I'm talking to people about things that it's vitally important for them in their future that they care very little about because it's not tangible and it doesn't have immediate gratification. I'll let you guys, make your minds up on what I'm talking about. We can talk offline about this, but it's very difficult, right? There are times where I wish I was selling used cars or watches because people actually want those things, right? The things that I broker, people are not really after, but they need them.
And you think it's like because of an educational piece?
100%. And also it's just as humans, we like things that feel good immediately, right? But I'm doing that, and I started off in a spot where it's like, okay, you have to go find all your own clients, and there's no salary, right? Like you're hustling, and unfortunately, you got to be that guy for a year or two, where you're, calling people that don't want to be called. You guys know as realtors, right? Like I see Big Tony over here hustling on the real estate game too, because getting started as a realtor, it's very similar, right? And then you have a lot of meetings that people nothing comes from it. Right. And
right.
A lot of no shows, right. Stuff like that. So that's the business that I'm in, but I'm very thankful, at year 3 of it, it's going, super well now. Right?
And that first 1 to 2 years is like painful, right?
Bruh.
Like for those, like in those kind of industry segments where you're on commission based or whatever you are, like, what kind of advice do you give to those that are in those industry sectors where it's like you are calling and you're getting tons of no's, or they hang up on you, they cuss you out, or whatever that is? Like what? I mean, your military background helped you with that. Yeah, not everyone's in that military mindset. Like what helps others push through that?
So in that type of scenario, you have to understand that when you enter into that world, you're giving up a lot of control, right? When you're in the W-2 world, you can bet, hey, there's going to be a check once or twice a month, right? And there's going to be benefits. When you do that, right, when you move into that space, you relinquish a lot of control over a lot of things, right? If you don't get paid that month, you can't run and ask HR why you didn't get paid. There's one person you can ask why you didn't get paid, and it's your damn self, right? So in this world, first and foremost, you need to control everything that you can control. And if you want to look at what you can control, the biggest thing, like go look in a mirror, right? You control what this does every day, right? You can control your mindset for the most part, and you can control your body, right? So the reason why like people, Evelina laughs at me. She's like, oh my God, you wake up at 4:30 in the morning. Like, I don't want to do that, right? And I can understand why she wouldn't want to do that. I didn't want to do it initially, right? But the reason why I do that is because I've realized, hey, usually around 7:30 or 8, I'm going to get a text or I'm going to get an email that's going to stress me out or piss me off, right? It's inevitable. In business, it's going to happen. What happens if by that time I've spent 30 minutes reading a motivational book, right? I've gone to the gym and taken out aggression on the bag, right? Or lifted very heavy weights or ran or got my body working, right? What happens if I've meditated for 30 minutes by that time? Right? What happens is, and I think David Goggins would agree, right? When you stay hard in your mind every morning, you make that decision, the rest of the day is not going to affect you, right? Like,
it's going to be easier, right?
It's going to be easier.
Easier to be able to handle those things.
Exactly. It's going to be easier to handle because, like, you look at the things that people in business have to go through, and there are people that will just crumble, or, there's a lot of alcoholics in business, right? And they're like, I'm just going to drink and forget about my worries and whatnot. And, you have to make a decision. It's like, are you going to build a armor around your mind to be able to handle these things, or are you going to stay soft, right? So that's the reason why I start my days out that way. And it's a reason why, like, I could get a call saying, oh, I'm going to lose $20,000 and then walk into a meeting smiling and talking with the next person, right?
Yeah. It's very similar, too. I don't remember who said it, but it's like, I remember they said, like, making your bed is winning that very first battle of the day.
Exactly.
Or not hitting the snooze button, getting to the gym on time. Right?
Exactly. There's such small things that you can do where it's like, oh, I'm already winning.
Check.
You have the momentum to carry you.
Exactly. And that's what separates a lot of people because, there are tons of people out there that are smarter than me, stronger than me, like all that stuff. But like, if you put the work in on yourself, it'll give you an edge that the other people won't have. Because like if you look around and there's 20 business owners and most of them are getting up at 7:30 or 8, just me getting up 3 hours earlier is already putting me ahead of them.
That's like that Mamba mentality. I know Kobe had RIP to Kobe, right? But
RIP.
he had a podcast too, or interview that I saw that he said, I'm able to work 3-4 more times in a day than everyone else, and that just adds up over years and time.
Absolutely. And I think, when it comes to mental health, it's a big thing as well. There's a lot of people out there struggling, right? And I'm not going to talk about anyone else's struggle because you shouldn't comment on other people's pain. But what I'll say personally for me is I've had my fair share of mental health battles. And quite honestly, if I didn't have the routine that I do in the morning, like, I don't know if I would have made it, right? Like the fact that you are taking control of your environment and you're pushing yourself, I think it allows you to handle things very differently than someone who's just, a couch potato all day.
Or takes just life as it comes versus taking control.
And that might be the answer to my question. I mean, it's going a little deep, to be honest with you, but I did want to ask you, like, that way, our listeners could get some advice and tips from you. Yeah. Do you remember when you hit your all-time low in your life and what you did or what you implemented into your life to get yourself or carry yourself out of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a couple of times. So my brother shooting himself in the head was probably like the worst part. And the worst part about it was that, like, so say you're working a W-2 job and you're having a really bad time, you can still just kind of go through the motions and, like, you'll still get paid, right? But the fact that, like, I had to meet with clients and, like, still keep my composure while, like, understanding, like, the shit that I'm having to deal with at home was super difficult. And quite honestly, like, I lost my mind there for a little bit. Like, it was, we were in some dark spots, but I realized that, like, and I'm thankful that this happened after I got the call, right, from my mom. That moment, I was like, there's a choice here. Like, I can curl up and just, like, let life step all over me. I can go crawl in a bottle and I can just fucking, wither away. Or I can fight back in the way that I can, in a positive and healthy way, right? Now, this does not mean you do not process the emotions. You don't bawl like a baby. You do all of those things. But there are also other things that you can do to still keep yourself in the right mindset to process those things in a healthy way, right? So, like, after that happened, that didn't mean I changed my routine. I didn't just say, like, hey, we're grieving, so I'm just done working out. Right? That would be the easy thing to do, but I didn't do it, right? Like, we kept it going, right? We kept moving forward and we took care of ourselves. And that's how I believe that you fight back from difficult times. You stick to the routine, right? If you can, you stick to the routine and it will get you through anything, right? But yeah, so losing my brother, man, was like, he was my only brother, right? And it took all of us by surprise. He had been married for a year. And, like, it was just a completely unexpected thing. You don't expect those things to happen. You see it happening to other people, and you're like, oh, it'll never happen to me, and then it does, right? Having my mom call me, wake up to, like, I still, if I wake up with missed calls, like, I shake a little bit, right? Because I had, like, 25 missed calls from her in a text message saying, call me immediately. Yeah. So.
Man, that's intense. And so, like, your routine, and for all of those with mental health, it's so important to talk about it because you don't know how many people's hearts you're touching just by sharing this story.
And how many people can actually relate,
right? And so for all of those with mental health, man, reach out, right? There's a lot of places to reach out, and this is powerful for those that have gone through this. Is like, man, like, it sounds like your routine saved you. And everything that you've done since then to make a change and make a difference and really show the world that people can power through this and make something of themselves. And so can you speak to how you've kind of taken that and gotten control of it to do something good with it in life?
Yeah, absolutely.
And take some time to...
So, yeah, to compose myself.
Yes,
it's
sir.
Okay for guys to cry, by the way.
It is.
Oh, definitely.
Absolutely okay.
And you should. But so this is what I do, right? So I have what I call a collection, right? So throughout the day, just like anyone else, I get sad about things, and I
Absolutely.
get upset. People piss me off, all this stuff. But instead of lashing out at people or like, just getting pissed off in the moment, I collect it and I process it at the gym in the morning, right? So like when I'm at the gym, I'm actively thinking about everything that is bothering me and I'm processing it. And I'm working to make sure that I'm not going to lash out at someone or my assistant because they did something stupid. And now I'm making my problem their problem and I'm just pushing all of this shit on them. So I collect it throughout the day and I make sure that every single day I process it in the morning through exercise and through meditation, right? And what I tell people is if you're going to the gym and you're not doing it mindfully, like if in your mind it's just like, you're wasting a lot because the pain that we experience can be some of the most potent fuel that anyone can give you, right? Like pain is more powerful than like, I don't even know what it is, right? Like pain has driven me further in this life than anything else that I could ever imagine. So like when I'm at the gym, when I'm meditating or when I'm doing things in business that are not the most fun things to do but have to be done, that's what I'm channeling. Right?
Yeah.
And I recommend everyone to channel with that. Don't waste that pain by just like getting drunk or like, going doing drugs or just like ignoring stuff. Like use it.
Yeah.
Use it, do things in spite of that pain.
Heck yeah. People avoid pain way more than they'll go towards pleasure.
100%.
Right. So it's a powerful tool. So man, I'm so glad we met you because now I feel like we're gonna be friends for life.
Oh, 100%. It's not to sound weird. I'm not trying to sound weird here, but like I've been watching you guys, right? Like through social media and everything, and like like anytime you see another person of color in business, you're just like cheering them on from afar. But like the thing about what you guys are doing here, it's like the wealth gap in America. It starts with knowledge, right? The fact that even though the knowledge is out there, if there are not people that look like us to transfer that knowledge, we don't feel comfortable acquiring that knowledge. So the fact that, as realtors, as a real estate group, you're serving a community, right, that's very hardworking, but maybe doesn't necessarily have the knowledge available or access to it to build wealth or to build like generational wealth. You guys are that conduit, right? Like you're connecting the dots for a lot of people, and that's so important. So I've been watching you guys, and I'm impressed.
Thank you. No, you're right. It's all about knowledge and spreading that knowledge with as many people as possible, and helping as many people as you can. So I forgot the quote that Dave Ferris said this morning. It's not about how much money you make, but it's about how many people you can help, right? Or something along those lines. And so this is a very, very powerful conversation. So to kind of like, what's next for you? Like, it sounds like you're doing a lot of good stuff in business. You're doing a lot of good stuff in real estate. Like, what's next? Because you're just getting started.
Yeah, no, I quite honestly, I am just getting started. And one of the things that like last year that I started, I realized that like I was making money and I was doing well, but I started to feel a bit empty inside. And I realized that the service portion of my life was lacking. So I got involved with Big Brothers Big Sisters in Cedar Rapids. Cool. And I got a little, and like me and him spent a lot of time together. So like it's that mentality has shifted my ideas for the future. So I also got on the board Big Brothers Big Sisters. And the idea is it's like, okay, it's no longer just how much money can we make. It's like, how can we build an infrastructure to help a lot of people? And I've realized that what truly excites me about being wealthy and making more money is to be able to give more away, right? Because there's a lot of people with a lot of great ideas and a lot of great hearts, but they don't have the cash to back it, right? So it's like, how can we help ourselves with helping other people and being able to help more people? Right. So, through that kind of like turning on that service switch, getting involved with Big Brothers, Big Sisters and whatnot, I want to continue to just work with others to give back. So I want to serve on more boards. And on the, I want to talk more about that, but I can't. I'll put it like this. As you guys know, there are levels to your game, right? And the types that you invest in. And I would like to level up here soon. And, taking on more creative projects. I think we have a lot of infrastructure in this country that is underutilized right now that there's going to be new purposes for. Yeah. And like getting in on those things. But yeah, and also maybe look at like the kind of family aspect of life too. Like, I don't have any kids, right? And I think for a lot of people, it's surprising that a 29-year-old doesn't have any kids in this day and age. But it's like, I wanted to build an infrastructure to, foster a productive lifestyle for these kids. And it's not that I want to spoil them, because I mean, quite honestly, like pretty much all kids that I know that were spoiled growing up are entitled brats, and like I don't really look up to them. But I want to make sure that my kids have the opportunities at their feet that some people don't, right? Doesn't mean I'm going to give them everything, but I'm going to make sure that the opportunities are available to them and they have a safe environment to grow and learn and go after what they want. And I don't care what it is that they want to do. They need to be the best at whatever they do. They could be a painter, be the next Van Gogh, the next Frazier Go, right? Go ahead.
No, that's super, super cool. And you hit a lot of really cool points there. And that's something too, like just in our communities in general, it's like we got to get rid of that misconception that money, because here, let me ask you this, because everybody knows this, right? Like money is the root of all, finish the sentence.
Evil.
Right? Like that's because that's how we grew up, yet it's not. Money is good for the good that money can do, right? And it only amplifies who you are. Exactly. Like that's what they say, right? Like when you actually get to the point where you have money, it's literally going to bring out the real you.
100%.
And so you have a huge heart, like what you're saying. You're like, you literally said, I want money so I can give more away. Yep. Because there's a lot of situations probably in life that will all encompass to where a check could solve someone's problem. And if you have enough of it, you uncover that problem, and you're like, here it is.
It's
and
an unclimbable mountain for them.
Yes.
And for you, it's like, it's a eighth of your day's pay.
Yeah.
But that's a really good point. And I was going to say something. I lost my train of thought. But what were we talking about before that?
So you were wanting to level up because you're going down this path.
Oh, so you were talking about how money brings out the best or the worst in you, right? And this is the reason why I think it is, right? I think all three of us would agree one of the reasons why we want to build wealth is because it gives you back your time.
Yeah,
right?
Your freedom.
But if you have bad intentions or you're kind of on a bad path, it gives you more free time to do those bad things, right? If you're on a good path and you have good intentions, you have more free time to develop those parts of your life.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it comes into the fact of like, look at people that maybe are not making the best life decisions. You give them a shit ton of money, they're going to make a shit ton of dumb mistakes. They're going to blow it on Gucci, drugs, and, fast cars, and end up just killing themselves, right? But if you give someone that has good intentions, right, money, not only are they going to help a lot of people, they're also going to help themselves in the sense of like, hey, they're going to take that time to improve themselves, whether that be through medication or whether that be through just taking the time in the morning to really do what they need to do to be the best of themselves, right? And I think that's why money amplifies those things.
Yeah. One of my newest mentors, he says that, because I'm on that path to buy freedom, right? Like through passive income. And he says, just like people told you that you're never going to know what it means to have kids till you have kids, and you're never going to know what it means to be debt-free until you're debt-free and that weight is off your shoulders. He's like, you're never going to know complete freedom until you have complete financial freedom to go out and do whatever it is that you want to do. Because when you have that, you have the freedom of time to actually go do what it is that you want to do. And you're going to use the words love and passion more often in your life is what he said. So I'm not there yet. It sounds like we're all on that path to get there. And so for those of you listening, man, there's just so much stuff that it sounds like you can share for the people out there, and quite can't go into detail right now. Yet what we can do is have them reach out to you directly.
You're more than welcome to reach out to me. But I think, you mentioned something really important. When people are coming up with these ideas, business ideas, and what they want to do, I think the reason why it's so important to not necessarily have a numerical goal of like, hey, I want to make this much money, or have like a situational goal of like, hey, I want to impact this many people, or I want to have this type of lifestyle, is because you could say I want to make $2 million and it takes me 10 years and I do it. But in the process, I lost my kids. I lost my family. I have terrible relationships. I'm an asshole. I don't even like myself, but I made my $2 million. And that's the danger of making goals surrounded by money, right? Whereas if you were to say, hey, in 10 years from now, I want to be able to take my family to Disney World 3 times, or I want to be able to open up a dog sanctuary or some crazy shit like that. Doesn't matter what it is, right? Guess what? When you made that goal, if you ever get there, like, you're going to feel really good about it. So when you hit that goal, you didn't neglect every other part of your life
cool.
in order to do it. So
it's a really good perspective of looking at that.
Yeah, that's a super cool perspective of how to set a goal that's not tied to necessarily a numerical monetary number. So,
and sometimes it's necessary to accumulate wealth in order to do that, right? Because dogs are expensive, so you're gonna have a dog sanctuary.
Disney is expensive nowadays too.
Disney,
right? Come on, 3 times.
Come on, Disney, really? Like, I haven't
do
been
it for
there
the
since
kids.
Yeah, do it for the kids, right? But yeah, so.
Dude, this has been a really awesome episode. I've had a lot of fun. So where to kind of like wrap it up, like if you were to really boil it down, like everything you've said so far, what are those 1 to 2 tips of advice for all of the people out there following, whether no matter age, race, color, whatever it is, like what are your 1, 2, or 3 pieces of advice that you would really like hone in and provide for everyone out there?
Yeah. So 1, control what you can control within yourself. Right? Every day that you wake up, figure out something that you can do and continue to do that's going to make you better. 2, find a mentor that you would switch spots with, right? Not someone that you just think is cool, someone that you would genuinely switch spots with if you could, because he or she is in the place that you want to be and add value to them, okay? And 3, this isn't something that we covered, but it's something I've been wanting to say since I sat down, right? You need to chase failure and you need to chase uncomfort. And it sounds really weird to say this, but the reason why I say this is because losers fail the least, right? Let me see if I said that right. Winners fail the most. Because if you think about it, a winner have tried and failed things so many times to the point where they've mastered it. A loser tries things once, they fail, and they never try it again because they're too afraid to, right? So if you look at people that you think are successful, I guarantee you they've been punched in the mouth more times than they can count, but they continue to get up. And that's why you want to chase failure and you want to chase uncomfort, because you're chasing the things that the most successful people have already been through. You're following that path. If you chase comfort, if you chase pleasure, right, that's not going to get you anywhere, right? Heaven is earned in hell. So like you have to go through it to get to it. So if you continue to chase uncomfort, I promise you, you're gonna like where you end up.
Dude.
Damn, Ben, thank you so much for your time. I've learned so much just this hour here sitting with you, and I'm sure everyone else has. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your advice.
Having him back.
We have to, right?
I've loved this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So thank you, man, for really taking the time to come out, give us some advice, some nuggets. Dude, you got to become like a motivational speaker or something.
Yeah, seriously,
your
dude.
Stories.
You got a natural gift to you're really easy to talk to. So
I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna touch a lot of people on this episode, and yeah, if you're not doing it already and getting in front of masses of people or groups of people, you need to. It sounds like you're doing it with Big Brother, with the Big Brother program, right? I think you need to even do more of it. So
more and more. Yeah. So
and that's just me putting a challenge of you to maybe get more uncomfortable, right?
Thank you. Absolutely.
All right, Antonio. So again, we're gonna have a video or a visual for this episode. So this will be super cool because you'll get to see all of our facial expressions every time he said something enlightening. Because my eyes just kept going. Like,
I know, right? Me too.
So
get to see me tear up and cry.
and it's real men cry.
We made him cry. It's
yes,
okay.
yes. It is, man. No, for sure. And it's, real men cry. I mean, I just the other day I was like kind of
tearing up a little bit.
Tearing up
happens,
and telling
happens all of us, yeah.
It's real and raw, and that's who you want to hang out with yourself and surround yourself with, instead of people that are completely, fake and not tell it like it is,
Absolutely.
So Antonio, what do we got going on next with the podcast, as you always kind of wrap it all up?
No, we're super excited to continue to push out content for you bi-weekly. We're doing it every other Wednesday, so make sure you guys keep staying tuned. We're wanting to have guests on like Ben, and we're going to make sure that we're getting more and more individuals that can tell us about their journeys, and making sure that we're touching different industries, different spaces, so that way it's not just real estate related, it's not just one topic, it's everyone's journey. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for supporting all our pages. Really, really means a lot to us. Make sure you keep liking, subscribing if you are new to our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next time.